Welcome back. Thanks for your company on this Monday morning. Now, we're learning more this morning about the government's plan to tackle the education crisis in our schools. The government planning to take the school curriculum back to basics, stripping out fringe subjects which have taken focus away from core learning. To discuss this and plenty more, I'm joined by Dan Ansey from CFM on the Gold Coast and Senator Malarndirri Mccarthy. A very good morning to you both and happy Monday. Dan,
good morning.
Let's first start with you. Of course, this comes off the back of that pretty startling report that showed that Australian students are falling behind with the rest of the world when it comes to those basic subjects. Do you think this is the answer, to strip away those non-essential, so-called non-essential subjects?
Well, yeah, that was very concerning, wasn't it? And I particularly worry about young boys who don't seem to be particularly conducive to that school environment. Like sitting down in a room, I remember being a young boy, obviously only a few years ago, I'm still very young, and it was very difficult just to sit in a classroom and try and soak in academia. They seem to be more conducive to getting outside and learning through that kind of environment. I don't know whether stripping away is the answer, but maybe retooling the way that we teach kids. If you get kids out and about and learning physics through actual activities as opposed to rote learning could be an option.
OK, so you think it might be a problem itself with the way that we teach our students. Malarndirri, some of the types of subjects facing the axe, they include dance, road safety and languages such as Mandarin, Japanese and Italian, and the plan is to replace those with Indigenous language classes. Do you think this will work?
Look, I always think that learning First Nations languages and having that as an option is a good thing for our country. But I'd say that, firstly, with any changes in each of the schools and the curriculum, you need to make sure you've got the teachers and you've got the parents involved. And so many schools are different in the kind of focus that they have. And I just want to make sure that there is that kind of coordination and consultation amongst the people who actually matter, and those are the students and their families.
And do you think that will be better benefited by focusing more, making that the curriculum more streamlined by that back to basics focus?
Well, certainly if there's a real issue around maths, English, history, I think some of them were the social sciences as well. Clearly we've got a real concern if our figures are going down. But at the end of the day, you've got to make it an environment that people and students want to learn in. And if they're studying subjects that are of interest, of course they've got to, they'll enjoy it a lot better.
Absolutely, and none of us want our teachers as stretched as they already are in many of our schools. Now, also making news today, Labor MP Julian Hill has been making a few headlines over his proposals for Australia to ditch the monarchy and become a republic without a referendum. Seems unlikely. Well, the MP for Bruce in Victoria says Parliament on its own could vote to make our Governor-General the head of state instead of the Queen. What do you think of this, Malarndirri?
Oh, well, look, I know Julian Hill and he's a wonderful man and a wonderful representative. I think in this instance I would say that with all that's going on, certainly with Prince Andrew and all the trauma that the royals are going through, you'd probably find most Australians would just go, look, it's just not on. But if we're talking about referendum, Lara, I'd certainly want to see firstly a referendum for a voice, First Nations voice to Parliament, if we're going to be talking about anything.
Indeed. Dan, as Malarndirri just touched upon, this is a huge issue. Shouldn't this be decided by a referendum instead of a vote by Parliament?
Yeah, look, referendums can get expensive, though. I mean, we saw that with the plebiscite on same-sex marriage not long ago. We'd done numerous polls, and every poll came back that 60% of Australians wanted same-sex marriage, were in favour of it. So then when we spent an enormous amount of money doing a plebiscite, we ended up finding that exact result. So I think you can get it done cheaper. And I like that the article mentioned that the Queen is possibly going to be, if this goes through, the last ever monarch. That's going to be the case anyway. She's never going to die. I mean, if there's a global holocaust, it'll just be cockroaches, the Queen and Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones. Mainly because you can't let her idiot kids take over. No one wants Charles, and Randy Andy, he's in enough trouble as it is.
But that's the reality. I mean, one day Charles will be king. Do you think, Dan, that it's time that we became a republic?
Look, if we don't skip him, go straight to Will. And people who like the royals, I'm a fan of becoming a republic. I think when you grow up as a nation, you graduate, you move out from under your parents' shadow and you become your own nation. Yeah, I think it's a great idea, and I think we should do away with the Royals. And if you love the Royals,
It's time.
don't worry, they won't go anywhere. They'll still be there. We'll still get all the gossip. They'll still be there. We just won't have to listen to them. And an Australian become the head of state, because right now an Australian cannot become the head of state. You have to be born into it through this strange system that is just a relic from a time gone by.
No doubt Meghan and Harry will always provide us with the headlines that we need as well. It'll be very interesting to see how public sentiment falls when the Queen does pass. Now, I want to end on this note.
Never will.
Never. No, she's immortal. Which perhaps comes under the heading, you are never too old to have some fun. I love this story because forget schoolies. The new buzzword right now is Moolies. That's right. This is the rising popularity of middle-aged mums taking themselves away for their own week of partying. Malarndirri, yes or no? I'm all for this. I love it. Mums deserve to let their hair down, don't they?
No, well, I was, you know what, Laura, I think my son, when he graduated 4 years ago, I wish they had this around then, but I have to say it just made me laugh when I heard Moolies, and I was like, so do they have something already now for dads? Like, are there doolies?
There is a doolies, apparently.
Like, where has this come from?
I love it. Embrace it. Dan, you said that you've got a little one already on the... You've just got... Is it 8-month-old bub?
Yeah, we've got an 8-month-old at home now, and I reckon my wife is ready to let go right now. Malarndirri, I'll get her to give you a call. You two can cut loose right now. But you know who's really celebrating? The Toolies.
Love it.
They've got two options
yes,
now. They've got the Stoolies and the Moolies. They're loving it.
Oh, my goodness. I reckon you could cut loose as a doolie anyway.
Thanks for the laugh, mate.
Dan and Malarndirri, lovely to see you. Happy Monday. There you go.
So there you go.
Now, just ahead, the heat is on across the country with 40-degree temperatures and fire warnings. We have the very latest coming up in our news.
Price going down, power price for Leaf on the way for millions of Aussies. But how much are you going to save?
And you can't sit here. The NATO summit turns Mean Girls as James Corden debuts his Boris Johnson parody. This is Today, and we'll have more in just a moment.